You let me know when you can see. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session today, our business series. Apologies for the delay. We had a few technical challenges, but we have resolved them. Welcome once again. Thank you so much for putting aside time to join us today for our business series. Just give me 1 second. Okay, thank you so much for putting aside time to join us today for our very first business series session in Uganda. The business series is something that we started as UBA to give back to our customers, our business customers, especially now in these trying times of COVID. We felt that we can't only give them financial services, we need to give them tools and experiences and lessons to help them deal with their businesses for growth. And today, this is the very first session we are having, and we are having a very able speaker today by the names of Julius Muwonge, and I'll be introducing him later on. But before we start, before I introduce him, I want to lay down some ground rules. The session is going to take about 1.5 hours, and we shall have a presentation from our main speaker, and thereafter we shall have a Q&A. And the Q&A, we shall be receiving questions from you, our participants, and these will be answered by our presenter, Mr. Julius Muwonge. I'm requesting the questions we send should be constructive and should be on topic. These questions will be reviewed by our colleagues in the background, and they'll only publish those questions that we deem fit for this session. So thank you once again. Please stay till the very end, because I know it's going to be a very productive event, and we are going to leave with some key takeaway action points that we can implement in all our businesses for growth. Like I said, the topic for today is trade and how we can leverage trade for growth, both locally and internationally. And our speaker today is Mr. Julius Muwonge, and I'm going to read the abridged version of his profile for you to get a better understanding of who he is and what he does for work. Mr. Julius Muwonge is a Ugandan entrepreneur with a background in project planning and management with specialization in enterprise management. He's a CEO of Wong Energy, an advisory and consultancy agency in the petroleum industry. His company is one of the indigenous entities working in Uganda's oil and gas sector. Julius is also a co-founder of Wong Motors, an automobile mechanical and technical engineering firm. Julius is a 2016 Mandela Washington Fellow under the Business and Entrepreneurship track of Clark Atlanta University. He's also an alumnus of the Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program. He has used the large entrepreneurship networking platform to connect with various entrepreneurs on and off the continent to share ideas, collaborate, and inspire other budding young entrepreneurs across Africa. Julius is a passionate person about trade as a driver for economic growth on a micro and macro level. He will share knowledge and experience on how African entrepreneurs can use trade as a source of growth for business locally and internationally. I think from this short profile of Julius, I just shortened it because we don't have a very long session. I think from this, we know that Julius is the right person for this topic, and he's going to do it justice. He has experience in Uganda. He also has experience in South Africa. So he's going to tell us how different businesses can use trade as a source of growth, both locally and internationally. So I'm requesting all of us to pay attention. Please, if you have inquiries, if you have feedback, if you have questions, please go ahead and just put it in the chat box. It's on the right side, and we shall review as the session goes on. We shall publish the questions, and our speaker, Mr. Julius Muwonge, will be able to answer them at the end of the session. With that said, welcome, Julius, and let's hear from you.
Am I audible enough, Jackie?
Yes, Julius, we can hear you very well.
Thank you, Jackie, for a very flattering introduction. There can be no better hypo man. For real, I will choose you in my corner any day with that kind of introduction. Jackie's introduction aside, for those of you who we have not had the pleasure of crossing paths, my name is Julius Muwonge, and I'm as a Ugandan and African as they come. I'm a few years shy of 35, and what I hope to share with you today is from the eyes and perspective of a 30-something African trying to scratch the continent for opportunity that comes with my African privilege. And I take that off from the words of the urban poet Ernestine Simbi, commonly known as GNL Zamba, from his body of work, Koi Koi. Yes, we are privileged to be Africans. Do not let anyone say otherwise. Jackie, I think I can start sharing my presentation.
Yes, by all means you can.
All right. Jackie, can you see it?
Yes, we can see the presentation, Julius.
All right. To the theme of the day, I once again thank you, the UBA team, for putting together this conversation. These conversations are not another set of good to have fireside chats, but serious conversations that touch on our fortunes as families, nations, and more importantly, the continent. The great economist Adam Smith could not have underscored the importance of trade any further when he said, "Every man lives by exchanging or becomes by some measure of a merchant in his wealth of nations' bodywork." To treat trade lightly would be to delegate our hopes as nations and individuals to third parties. In my opinion, the time is now to address the few encumbrances that remain for the African hustler to take his place in global trade conversations. The Africa's place in domestic and cross-border trade markets started as early as the 7th century, dominated by present-day Ghana's Soninke Empire, Berbers, and the Sudanic tribes of Northern Africa. These traded along the camel-dominated commercial routes across the Sahara. The early trade routes mainly dabbled in salt and gold as the global demand for coinage rose. So profound was the role of the 14th century Mena commerce that the arrival of the great African Mansa Musa with a ton of gold in Cairo, I think it was around 1324, is alleged to have crushed the regional gold markets in Cairo, Egypt. Yes, Black Africa is not new to trade. In East Africa, my home, formal monetized trade goes back to the Indian Ocean door and monsoon-driven trade routes opened in the late 1700s by the Arabs, the present-day Middle East. And yes, our connection with Dubai, most of you, when you hear Middle East, you think about Dubai, but our trade with them does not start with the Burj Khalifa and the Instagram-driven selfies of most of our brothers who visit We have been at this for a while. Today, we boast of a number of Africans scaling markets on the continent. We can see captains of industry like Tony Elumelu in banking, Dangote in construction and oil, Mo Ibrahim in telecommunications. We have Emmanuel Katongole in pharmaceuticals, Patrick Vitature in the hospitality space, among others. On a more promising note, the continent is seeing a new breed of internet-fueled trade. From across the major capitals, we are seeing vibrant tech ecosystems cutting their teeth in sectors like e-commerce. We have Jumia, we have Chikubo Online in Uganda, we have Safe Border. Also, when you go to payments and remittances, we have Cheaper Cash, Paystack, True African, Pegasus. This segment boasts of a chunk of young African millionaires. But unfortunately, the two classes of old school hard-nosed industrialists and emerging techpreneurs are the exception. The average Julius is yet to come to the party. From Lusaka to Kampala, Ouagadougou to Accra, Nairobi to Lagos, the average indigenous trader has been relegated to the peripherals in trade. Oftentimes, we dabble in the import consumables. More recently from China, or the aggregation of unprocessed agricultural produce for onward export. These peripheral roles barely account for 20% of trade in our markets. Another role that Africans have owned in some markets is the role of national domestic equity partners as multinational companies seek to meet local ownership or content obligations. Here we arrange local contractors to service the multinationals, or sometimes have peripheral equity stake by virtue of market entry, sweat capital. But we need to ask ourselves, is this enough? The question of our time is this really enough? Is this how we should play in trade? Are we doing enough to harness the trade opportunities presented by the fourth industrial revolution? How about the newfound energy and mineral resources on the continent? How do we plug in? How do we bring more of us to the party? I, Julius Muwonge, I have my own raw thoughts that I've splitted into 6. Number 1, we have in-country value addition of our agricultural produce. Despite the growth in technology, extractives and tech spaces, the agricultural space still provides unmatched advantages for trade and growth on the continent. We maintain a huge share of arable land, fresh water, and for those of us who are within the tropicals, we enjoy 2 wet seasons a year. But those advantages notwithstanding, the export of traditional and processed produce has to be a priority. Trade is trading in unprocessed food or agricultural output will not cut it. It is simply putting us at an advantage. Exporting that green bean to Italy, to China is good, but won't it be great to have conversations bringing world-class roasters on the continent? The same energy goes with our cocoas, the vanillas, we have cottons. So we need as Africans to think of how can we add value to our produce on the continent to create employment and also present them to the local, to the international markets. 2, digitizing the value chains. The advent digital trend, most especially with the mobile phone and the internet, continues to present unprecedented advantages as a trade enabler. The mobile and internet continue to cut distances between farmers, but this can only achieve full potential of the underlying production and value chains if they are digitized. Transparency and fraternity have become key facets in business, and more recently, we see global investment in fair trade practices, mostly for us who are into coffee. You guys might have heard of things like from the farm to the cup. We can only tap into this new goodwill with good digital trails to present us two ethical and organic trade partners. It's only then that we shall attract world-class finance and partners across industries. Number 3, skilling and digitizing agricultural practices. We cannot come to the tables of regional and global trade without due attention to the right specified and certified skills, and also the standardizations, the processes that are acknowledged and accepted globally. So as we align ourselves, we need to have the ability to integrate our production as well as complementing it with value addition. So even worse, the lack of standards and quality may selfishly be used by our potential trade partners to lock us out of the markets. This oftentimes is done to protect their own local suppliers. This we have seen with small regional squabbles about sugar, milk, and maize. I did not know until recently that we had so many regional experts in aflatoxin levels. Number 4 is skills building. The component of skills building is very key and crucial in the new industries or the new sectors that are opening up and have been unexploited in many of our African economies. I'm gonna give an example of a sector where I play, the oil and gas sector. Oftentimes, many of you have heard that there is a lot of work that the oil and gas sector is gonna open up. But when you look and decipher the requirements for some of these jobs, for some of these opportunities that are being availed to us through the National Local Content Act, they call for specified skills, and we lack most of these. I'll give a very common example. All of you know that the FID has been signed between the international oil companies and the government of Uganda. Now, these international oil companies, because Uganda we are landlocked, the best and most economical way at the moment is to have a pipeline from the oil fields of Kingfish and Tilenga through the Kabale Central Processing Facility, all that's in Hoima, to construct a pipeline to the port of Tanga in Tanzania. Now that leads us to the East Africa Oil Crude Pipeline. With that pipeline in mind, there is a huge potential and an opportunity for welders who have to work on to building and setting up that pipeline. But do we have the right welders in Uganda to offer those services? We've seen various certified training companies that are coming up to give these special welding skills or global recognized welding skills to Ugandans. And that spreads across to most of the sectors that are opening up. Number 5, the pursuit of partnerships. Yeah, we cannot shoot for transocean opportunities without meaningful alliances with our brothers on the continent. Before we look outward to the Americas, to Europe, to China, how are we trading with our brothers next door in Rwanda, in South Sudan, in DRC, across border to the West Africa, in Nigeria, in Egypt, in Morocco? We will only be able to unlock this trade potential if we are able to trade with our own brothers on the continent. And that leads me to my final thought of the regional trade blocs. We in Uganda belong to the East African community. We subscribe to COMESA and various trade blocs. We've heard about SADC. We know about ECOWAS. But are we making the most of these regional trade blocs? I think, and I've seen or observed from most of our leaders, we have made commitments or we have ratified the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which actually was implemented or put into action this year. So we need to entirely pursue it to its fruition, to put our leaders to account, because with the successful implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, there will be easy movement of labor and services across borders. And that's what will unlock the African market for all of us, the 55 African countries, without even looking outward to the other continents. I want to end my sharing with you by a quote from Robert Thea from his Storm and Silence. Ships are my arrows, the sea my bow, and the world is my target. Thank you all of you for attending in. And Jackie, the microphone is back to you.
Thank you so much, Julius. That was an interesting presentation on trade, and I must say, you have given me some interest in trade, and I might soon resign my banking job just to take up trade. And I'm sure everyone who has been listening has felt that, and they've been enriched by your presentation. I'm glad that we're having more joiners on the event, and I hope that you've all enjoyed the presentation from Julius. It was to the point, and he didn't waste any time. We are going to go into the section of the Q&A. I'm going to ask my moderators to please publish the questions from our audience so that we can deal with them. Please, if you're in the audience and you have any question about the presentation or about the topic that we are discussing today, feel free to just write in the chat box, put your questions, put your inquiries, put your feedback on the presentation, and it will all be addressed. I'm still waiting for my moderators to publish. I see one question for Julius, so I'll just take the questions as they come, and Julius, feel free to answer the questions as I ask them. So the first question we have from our audience is, under what conditions can trade help a nation to achieve its development objectives?
Under what conditions can trade help a nation to achieve its development?
Conditions, I mean development objective, sorry.
Its development objective. So I want to start with a disclaimer. I'm not an expert on trade. And so these are my raw thoughts. This is what I think as a player in this trade area. What I would expect me, Muwonge Julius, who has now started up the Bureau of African Beverages here in Johannesburg in South Africa, that's going to be marketing and selling Ugandan coffee. I would like to get a clear policy from my government concerning coffee. Recently, you must be aware of the pending coffee bill. I have had the privilege to look at it, and I think there are lots of good things there. And government needs to set up a dialogue and consultation from everybody who contributes to the coffee trade. They need to listen to us, the coffee farmers. They need to listen to the coffee traders. They need to listen to the coffee buyers. So governments need to work and have it right at the policy formulation. Once we have the right policies, because these are laws, these are rules that are gonna set the terms for the game for everyone to benefit from. So I would think that governments need to engage more with their people when formulating these policies. And we do not need to have blanket approaches. We do not need to copy and paste of what is done to other areas. We need to always customize some of these solutions that we think would work well within the confines of our borderlines. So my take is to the governments. They should work hand in hand with the populations at policy formulation. And when policies are being formulated, like how we have the coffee bill that I've highlighted, how is government engaging and educating the public about this bill? So if the governments, or if our government, like the government of Uganda, engages the public from the onset, I think we will have it right in our space of trade if we have clear and precise regulations. I might close it with incentives and support, most especially to native or traditional investors. I'm very happy with the work that is being done by Uganda Investment Authority to encourage and support local investors. Previously, we saw foreign investors being given a red carpet within our own market, within our own economy. They were always prioritized, but now with the new board, and I think with the new government approach, I see lots of opportunities. I see invitations for mostly native investors being called upon by the Uganda Investment Authority to see how government can support them through the various incentives that government can offer. That's my take.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Julius. It's encouraging to know that government is putting incentives in place to support the local businesses access these other markets and do trading. So thank you so much for that. We have a question from Mr. Senyonga Godfrey. He says, at what level in business would you advise one to do a partnership with another? And he also says, thank you so much. It's a very informative session, Mr. Julius.
At what level should you do a partnership? I think it's at any level. For me personally, it depends on the nature of business you are starting, that you are setting out to do. If from the onset you need specific skills, or you need to unlock some opportunities, and they require you to have given partners to take away the entire burden of you to trade as a single entity. And that really calls for partnerships. Why not? I would think at any given level, depending on in the sector or in the space you're playing in at, partnerships come in at any time. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Senyonga.
Thank you for that, Julius. We have one more question from an anonymous participant who has asked, how do you see climate change influencing trade, both locally and internationally? This is a very, very active topic right now across the world. So I was expecting it.
No, the anonymous, that question from an anonymous person, it's a very good question. Thank you, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous. So I play in the fossil fuel space. My 825 is an oil and gas consultancy, a boutique consultancy firm, Wong Energy, based out of Bugolobi in Kampala. And from the recently concluded climate change conference in the UK, there's been a lot that has been said about the fossil fuel space. I'm very happy as an individual that most of our clients, I'm gonna give an example of a local of an international oil company that's playing space within Uganda. That's Total. Some of you, if you've been vigilant or observant enough, Total has rebranded to Total Energies. Part of their reason to rebrand is to be aware about how best can they, in their operations as an oil exploration and production company, how can we sustain our environment? So that's the space that I'm dealing with, and that's where the conversation has shifted. In our space, how are we going to be able to ensure that we are alert and aware with this issue of climate change? Me, personally, as Muwonge Julius, a father, I'm thinking about the future of my children, of my grandchildren, of my great-grandchildren. I want to be in spaces of where we take great concern about our environment. How should we conserve it? How should we have businesses that are environmentally conscious? That's the space where I am in as an individual and even professionally through my consultants. I'm working on a journey where we want to be part of the climate change conversation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Julius. I hope you have responded to our anonymous participant. The next question we have and comment is from Mr. Ronald Sekandi Seguja, who says, "Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Muwonge. I'm a Ugandan living in Europe. How would you convince me to make the decision to move back to the continent and invest in trade? What are the benefits to engaging in trade on a continent as opposed to other regions of the world?" I think he meant, what are the benefits of engaging in trade in Africa as opposed to other regions of the world?
Thank you, Mr. Sekandi, for that question. Still, I'm putting out this disclaimer, I'm not an expert on trade, but my advice to my brother Sekandi would be that wherever he is, he has said he's in Bochum, that's in Germany. Also, he has seen how advanced the German economy or the European economy is. And it's to my understanding that he's very aware of how much needs to be done back home here on the continent. So to you, Mr. Sekandi, it's our responsibility, not only as Africans, but as our generation, to take it upon ourselves to come up with solutions that are going to transform this continent to the levels of other continents like Europe, or to be more specific, Germany, where you are. I don't need to convince you to come back home. I should only highlight to you the various unexploited opportunities. I mentioned earlier when we were opening up the Q&A session that last year we started up a company here in South Africa with a few colleagues of mine. It's called the Bureau of African Beverages. And our intention is to sell and market Ugandan coffee here. We arrived at that because, according to research and data we were privileged to access, South Africa is the biggest coffee consumer on the African continent, following Ethiopia. But this gets interesting. Ethiopia consumes almost above 65% of their production. South Africa, in this case, they are a non-coffee producing country. We in Uganda, according to UCDA, that's the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, we export over and above 93% of what we produce. And that's what formed our decision to start selling coffee from Uganda to South Africa that doesn't grow coffee, but has a high coffee consuming market. That's one example. There are various other examples that I can go on and on and on about the continent. So I would like to end it by saying, I don't need to convince you, but I need to highlight to you the various unexploited or poorly exploited opportunities that we have here on the African continent. And this is not only Uganda, but it's across borders. What is here in South Africa that can work best in Uganda? When you look at the financial world space, today our hosts, UBA, he's headquartered in Lagos. It was started by Nigerians. Nigerians are driving it and they are playing on the African terrain, not only Nigeria, but across the continent. And here we are today having this discussion, having this conversation, but at the back end of it, UBA offers financial services, not only Nigeria, but in Uganda and across the continent. So those are the various opportunities that cut across board on the continent, and there are very many. I would like to end it at that.
Thank you, Julius, and thank you for talking about UBA. Yes, UBA is not only in Uganda, UBA is in over 20 African countries, and that is why UBA is called Africa's Global Bank. And I will ask the question that's related to banking and financial services. This is from Mr. Stuart Sebunya. He says, "Thank you, Mr. Muwonge, for your presentation. I would like to talk about the opportunities for financing that exist for especially young African entrepreneurs. How do financial institutions like UBA help those in trade? Would you advise startups to take up those financing options?"
Okay. Mr. Sebunya Stuart, thank you for that question. Stuart is my brother. I know him.
Oh.
But that's a very good question. So Jackie, before I answer that, I want to first pose a question to you. Are you gonna pay me for my answer on that question?
We shall see.
Okay, so I'm gonna use an example of UBA. I started my relationship with UBA in 2017, to be specific. And that's when I became part of the Tony Elmelu Entrepreneurship Program. I'm a 2017 finalist, and I ended up, I was part of the group that went to Lagos in 2017. At that time, I was running an e-commerce platform, Yohom. Most people around Kampala might be familiar with it. UBA had the business accounts of Yohom. But because of the relationship that I had with UBA, I got interest to open my personal account with UBA. And that started in end of 2017, if I haven't forgotten. But since then, personally, I have had good, sound financial advice from UBA. Jackie, now I'm advertising you.
Thank you. Please go on.
Secondly, UBA has given me and my businesses. So when Jackie was introducing me, he mentioned to you that I ran a motor mechanical workshop in Wandega in Kampala. UBA has the business accounts of Wong Z Motors. UBA works with another company that I have in a small stake. It's a clearing firm called Tej Global Logistics. It's also based in Kampala. But let me start with the personal relationship with UBA. Because of my trading and dealing in and outside Uganda, most times I need Forex. So UBA has dedicated people, individuals that help me with my Forex buying. And now this is a fact. UBA always tries hard to beat the market rates of the day when I'm dealing with them. Of recent, I've been mostly buying rands because My family is here in South Africa, and I have got business interests here, so I always need rands. Then sometimes I also need to buy dollars. But when you move around the market, because I've dealt with other financial institutions, UBA has always offered to me the best rates, the best market rates for the day. Because sometimes I always tell them what the market is selling, and UBA will come in and match it. Then two, UBA has got a dedicated 24-hour support service. They've even integrated, I think it's called Leo. Actually, Jackie, Leo was introduced to me at the Boulevard branch on Kampala Road by, I think, a certain lady called Grace. She introduced Leo to me. And I always use Leo for mobile money transactions when I don't need to walk into the bank. Then, now that's how personal I've benefited from UBA. But on the business side, we've had business sound advice with the businesses I have interests in through UBA at no cost. And I think, unless otherwise, that financial institutions like UBA and others that are out there should continue or should have avenues where they are always willing to listen to their customers. Me, I've been listened to by UBA. I've always been given a 24-hour support, access to my accounts, financial transfers, and credible, sound business advice. So, Stuart, when you're looking for financial institutions to help you, look out for financial institutions that are willing to have more of a personal relationship, not a business relationship with you. Because for me, that's the relationship that I have with UBA. And maybe, as I'm winding up on this, that's the reason why, Jackie, you thought about me when you're introducing the business series in Kampala.
Yes, Julius, you're very, very right. When this opportunity came up, you are the first person I thought about, because I know that you've been with UBA since 2017. Actually, that's when I also first met you. And I think you are a happy customer, and we try to go over and above to support you. And that's what we do with all our other businesses. So yes, you have responded well. And even to everyone else that's listening, we always tailor-make solutions for our customers. So you shouldn't be afraid to approach UBA. If you have a need, a financial need, a business need, just approach UBA and we shall tailor-make solutions for you. Credit, digital, any solution that you need financially to support your business. At UBA, we shall tailor-make it for you. And I think Julius is testament to this. He has been with us, and every time he has a challenge, every time he needs support, as UBA, we are there to support him. So the person who asked the question, we are going to get in touch with you and we shall see how we can support you and how we can support your business. We are having so many other questions, so I'm going to ask two questions that will go, Julius, and you can answer them quickly so that we don't take too long on the session.
Jackie, how many? Can we only do two? I'm willing to share my email. We can have this conversation. I have another meeting coming up in 27 minutes. I thought this was going to take 1.5 hours. Yeah. Yes,
it should have, but I think you have given a good presentation and people are interested in the topic, and that's why we're having so many responses. But let's do at least 3 so that people can feel heard. I will ask a question that's very pertinent to the times we're in right now, and it's from Anonymous. He's asking, or she's asking, what can business owners do to recover from the COVID-19 effects on business? Or how are you recovering from those effects yourself as a business owner?
That's a tough one coming from our second Anonymous. I think I don't have the right answers to that, but again, let me use my own personal experience. You know, we were all not prepared. We were unaware. Nobody thought or ever imagined that the world will come to a standstill. And then the global lockdown happened. But I think one of the best ways I've been able to adapt to this starts off from my spirituality, from my spiritual belief as an individual. And I've been supported so much by my wife. My wife shared with me when I was scared and worried when we went into the global lockdown, because business came to a standstill and my work was threatened. But she told me, and if I remember correctly, that Julius, our hope needs to be in God. You need to trust God. And she even went a notch higher and said that in the midst of chaos, God raises people, but you need to believe in him. God will raise you regardless of whether the world is going through this turbulence. Just trust in God, he has your back. So one, it's my belief and trust in God that regardless of what I encounter, regardless of the challenges that I might face, I know that God is gonna see me through. Then secondly, it's about being very aware of my surroundings and of what is happening. So when COVID happened and my business interests were affected, I had to pivot or tweak my business models to apply to what now has been termed as the new normal. For example, pre-COVID, we used to have such kind of discussions. Physically, UBA would have hired a hotel in Kampala and then invite people, and then they would give me the opportunity to be a speaker. But now we are here on Microsoft Teams. There are other solutions or platforms where people go to have their meetings. And look at what this has done. It saves a lot of time. It also saves money, and it's very effective and efficient. So you need to adapt and pivot to the relevant times and not to be so taken up with what you're used to. And I think thirdly, it has been about consulting and engaging with experts, with people who do things that I've invested myself in, and asking them on how best we should be able to move forward or what would be the right solution. So through consultation, through dialogues as these, I've been able to adapt and shift my business interests to apply to the times, and also to prepare for the future that now, as we've all witnessed it, includes uncertainties, so that we plan for those uncertainties. Yeah, so yes, that's how I've dealt with COVID.
Thank you so much, Julius. I think you are on point. And my key takeaway from that is adapt, and innovate. That's the only way a business can survive such challenges, and it's the only way it can thrive. And this is COVID, but tomorrow there will be another challenge. So it's just, you have to adapt and you have to keep innovating. We have a comment from that good wife you talked about. And she said, good and well insightful presentation from your wife, Julius. That was a comment from your wife.
Hey, thank you, Tebo.
Yes. Thank you so much for supporting Julius. If you hadn't supported him, he wouldn't be here. So thank you so much. We shall take 2 questions and we shall close the session.
Okay.
2 additional questions and we close the session so you can go for your other meeting. The first will be, what would you say the effects of the current security situations? What would you say are the effects of the current security situations in ESC on businesses?
Is this coming from an anonymous person?
Yes, it's an anonymous person.
Yeah, I'm no security expert still, but as a business person, I think, or as a Ugandan, or as an African at that, I think we really need to support our security agencies, because any security threat starts by affecting your own personal life before it even, and if your personal life is affected, then your business, you won't be able to do business, you won't be able to trade. So we need to always adhere to the advice that comes from our security agencies. And we need to be vigilant and support them in all ways that we can. I think that's the best way how we need to do it. And that would be the best way on how to fight off and fend off these insecurities. We need to be in line. We need to support our security agencies. Yeah.
Thank you, Julius. And I want to add that Uganda is safe. Let us
Yeah,
all continue.
Of course,
Uganda,
of course.
let us show. Those are just cowards that are trying to, disrupt the security in the country, but Uganda is safe. The last question that we are going to take on is from Ivan Dan, and he asks, what advice would you give to choosing great business partners, and how do we avoid conmen beyond our borders?
Okay, hey, that's a very good question from Ivan Dan. I'm gonna start it with a couple of days ago. I'm gonna answer it with this example. A couple of days ago, me and my wife attended a meeting here in Johannesburg, and in that meeting, that same question rose up, but a solution was found on how to avoid dealing with fraud in terms of partners or people you're thinking to work with or you're intending to work with. The best way, or the conclusion we arrived at was, always ensure that you yourself from the onset, you're doing things in the right way. You're following the due processes of the laws that govern you. I'll go more in detail about that. It's because most people who end up being taken advantage of, somehow, somewhere, also their intentions are not good. They want to bypass some processes, and they end up dealing with people who promise them that when we take this shortcut, you'll be able to arrive at this. And in that process, they are taken for a ride. And then secondly, which is also very crucial, always ensure that you're formal in your business dealings. Like right now, if you're thinking of dealing with other individuals and partners, you need to ensure that you are formally registered, you're tax compliant, you do your filings very well, your employees have work contracts that clearly stipulate what are their obligations at workspaces. Your contractors, it should be the same. It should highlight what you offer, what you intend to offer, and what they intend to offer at the end of the day. You should use services of the lawyers. regardless of how much they charge you, try to negotiate with them. I know some of them are expensive, but ensure everything is documented and it's notarized or certified. In that way, you will always be protected, and it's gonna save you those scammers, the Cornmen, or you to be taken for a ride. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Julius. And thank you for taking on all the questions that we have posed to you, that our participants have posed to you. And thank you for our participants for all the questions you have asked and all the comments you have made. We apologize for the questions we haven't responded to. We have sent them to Julius, and he will respond to all of them, and we shall send out the answers to everyone who has logged on today. With that, I'm going to ask our speaker for the day to just give us some closing remarks before I can close off the session.
My closing remarks, I think I'm gonna borrow the two everlasting ethos of respect and integrity in each and everything that you do. I think these are words that need to be repeated, even to me myself, and to everybody who has tuned in and everybody who's out there. Let's be respectful to one another. Let's always exercise integrity in everything that we do. Let's try to be honest to one another, because the world of business, the world of trade, calls for that at any single day. Your currency is your integrity, is your word. Always stand by your word. Yeah, those are my closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julius, and thank you for honoring our invitation and accepting to do this talk. I think the presentation has been very insightful, and we have learned a lot from you, and for that we are very, very, very appreciative. Thank you so much, and we hope that when we call you back, you will accept to come back. And thank you also for marketing UBA. I'm very happy that you're a happy customer, and we are here always to serve you. And for all our participants today, thank you so much for logging on. We had a few challenges at the start, and we are sorry for that, but we promise that next time it will be smoother. We are going to have more of these sessions on different topics that affect our businesses and that can help us improve our businesses. So I'm calling upon each one of you to always log on, always attend these events and get some insights that can help you grow your businesses. We are going to also share this presentation with everyone that has attended. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. You can send an email to cfcuganda@ubagroup.com, and we shall respond to any query you have, whether it's on this presentation or it's on financial services or it's on anything that you need with your business. Please feel free to contact us. We are here as UBA to always support you and ensure that your businesses grow. So with that, I'm going to wish you a good afternoon and farewell. Bye.
Bye.